Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mundan Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour. At least 55 killed in fresh clashes between police and protesters in Bangladesh. Its government imposes curfew. Dozens arrested after demonstrations by far-right groups descend into riots in United Kingdom's towns and cities. 7 European Union countries call on Venezuela to publish electoral rolls promptly to ensure full transparency around last weekend's presidential election. Israel's Iron Dome air defense system intercepts rockets launched by Hezbollah. Israel launches retaliatory strikes in southern Lebanon. Countries urge nationals to leave Lebanon. In Paris Olympics, Indian hockey team beat Great Britain to book semi-final spot. Boxer Lavlina Borgohain misses an opportunity to win back-to-back Olympic medals. The Israel-Hamas conflict is intensifying following the killing of key figures from Hamas and Hezbollah. This escalation has prompted Iran and its allies to vow retaliation. The situation is further complicated by increased U.S. military support for Israel and international advisories for citizens to leave Lebanon amid rising tensions. DD India's Mihir Maikuri has more.
The conflict that started with Israel fighting Hamas after the October 7 massacre last year is now widening. This escalation follows the killing of Hamas military chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and the Israeli assassination of Hezbollah's military chief Fuad Shukr in Beirut. These actions have led Iran and its proxies to vow retaliation. For Israelis, Sunday night was a nightmare as the country's Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted Hezbollah's rocket barrage. In response, the Israeli army targeted a Hezbollah launcher in Lebanon. Following the US approval to send more warships and fighter jets to West Asia to bolster support for Israel, President Joe Biden expressed hope that Iran would de-escalate despite its threats of retaliation for the assassination of Hamas leader.
We've now added additional naval and air assets to the region to help defend Israel again. I think we've proven time and time again that we're going to support Israel.
Amid worsening security situation in West Asia, multiple countries including the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Sweden, India and Jordan have advised their citizens to leave Lebanon. Meanwhile, Gaza truce negotiations took place in Cairo between an Israeli delegation and Egyptian mediators. As per Israeli media, Prime Minister Netanyahu is not eager to strike a deal with Hamas. On Sunday, Netanyahu accused Hamas of obstructing the negotiations aimed at ending the Gaza conflict. As the risk of a wider conflict grows, only time will tell how Iran and its proxies will retaliate and how Israel will respond to the threat. Mihir Maikuri's report for DD India.
DD India's Trent Moray now joins us live from Beirut. Trent, how are tensions shaping up in West Asia in view of Hezbollah-Israel tensions and also Iran vowing retaliation to Hamas leader Haniyeh's killing?
Well, we know that tensions certainly are ratcheting up, and there is a real sense of unease, I think, for people not just here in the Lebanese capital, but right across the region, that we could be on the brink of quite a major war. Of course, both sides publicly signalling that they are prepared to go into this with a real show of strength, and that's really against a backdrop of other movements in the region, including the US sending warships as well as additional fighter jet squadrons in anticipation of potentially having to assist Israel in shooting down any missiles or rockets that attempt to enter its airspace. We, of course, also know that the Iranians, both in state media but also in political statements, are signalling that the response that is coming will likely be larger than the one that we saw in April, which was around 300 cruise missiles and ballistic rockets. So it's obviously a tense time right now. We know diplomats are working very hard to try and diffuse tensions. We understand the Jordanian foreign minister has made a rare visit to Tehran this afternoon on behalf of King Abdullah to try and talk the Iranians down from launching a wide-scale attack that could cause a war. But the Wall Street Journal is reporting this hour that the Iranian response to that is they don't care if there is a wide-scale war. They really believe that Israel needs to be sent a message after that airstrike in Tehran, and that's a message that they're prepared to send with force.
Trent, you're telling us the diplomatic efforts are on for a diplomatic solution, but then how real is the possibility still of a wider conflict or full-fledged war in West Asia?
Well, look, I think all we can really work with is the public rhetoric that we are hearing, particularly from Hezbollah here in Lebanon. They are vowing that there is going to be a strong response, one that is, quote, very real and not theoretical. This coming from a group which is thought to possess between 130 and 150,000 rockets and missiles, and of course their proximity being on the border to Israel means there's very little time for Israel to be prepared for short fire rockets over the border, that's for sure. And I think we also just have to look at some of the movements which are taking place, of course, not just the military aspect with the US, but also we are hearing some senior leadership from Hezbollah has now left the headquarters here in southern Beirut out of anticipation of any additional Israeli strikes. We're also hearing in Israel, for what it's worth, that bunkers have been prepared for the government there in the event of war. Ministers have been given satellite phones in case the cell phone network goes down, and a new app has been rolled out by the Home Front Command for Israelis to get instant notifications on their phone if there is a rocket attack, regardless of whether they've installed the official app or not. So certainly the trend lines would suggest that we are moving towards something which could spiral into a major conflict. But again, that's why the diplomats are working to try and bring down the temperature the best they can.
Trent Murray reporting from Beirut. After well over a decade, riots have erupted across the UK following anti-immigration protests fueled by disinformation about a suspect in a Southport attack. Cities including Hull, Liverpool and Manchester saw significant violence with nearly 100 arrests. Interior Minister Vet Cooper condemned the disorder, pledging strong police action and support. Our next report has more.
After 13 years, towns and cities across the United Kingdom are engulfed in flames as demonstrations organized by anti-immigration groups have erupted into riots. This comes after misinformation spread rapidly on social media that the suspect in Monday's knife attack at a children's dance class in Southport was a radical Muslim migrant. Scenes from Saturday, including bricks being thrown, shops looted, buildings set on fire, and police attacked in Hull, Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Blackpool and Belfast clearly illustrate how fragile the security situation remains. Meanwhile, on Sunday, Lancaster and Rotherham saw its streets remain heated as anti-immigration and counter-protesters clashed. The violence, resulting in nearly 100 arrests across England, poses the greatest challenge yet to Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer's month-old premiership. To reassure the public that the security situation will not spiral out of control, UK Interior Minister Cooper stated that the violence and disorder have no place on Britain's streets.
Well, criminal violence and disorder has no place on Britain's streets. We've been clear to the police that they have our full backing in taking the strongest possible action against perpetrators, including we're making sure that there are more prosecutors, there are sufficient prison places, and also that the courts stand ready, because anyone who engages in this kind of disorder needs to be clear that they will pay the price.
The last time violent protests erupted across Britain was in 2011, when thousands of people took to the streets after police shot dead a black man in London. Bureau Report, DD, India.
And Oli Bharat now joins us from London. Oli, how is the situation in the UK now, and how are the authorities dealing with it?
Well, there is still several episodes of disorder and unrest which are underway in a number of UK cities this British afternoon. One of those episodes of tension has been at a hotel in Rotherham, which was targeted by a group of people chanting about immigration because they believe that asylum seekers were housed in that hotel. Riot police arrived at that particular site and seemed to have got the situation there under control, but it was certainly very concerning for a time. And we have a new statement from the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper on that particular episode. She says, Yvette Cooper, the criminal violent attack on a hotel housing asylum seekers in Rotherham is, she says, utterly appalling, deliberately setting fire to a building with people known to be inside. And she says that the government has full support for South Yorkshire Police for the strongest action against those responsible. But there are also police forces responding to episodes of disorder and unrest and potential clashes between communities in other UK cities this afternoon. Police are out in force, and the other thing that the government says is that there will be strong support, it says, for the judicial system to make sure that as many people as possible who are taking part in some of the criminal activity that we have been seeing can be prosecuted as well through the court system as quickly as possible.
Also, Ali, how do you see the timing of the protests coming as they do just days after the stabbing incident, but also a month after the Labour government assumed power?
Well, let's start with the politics first, and it is certainly the biggest crisis that the new Labour government has had to deal with since it came into government, and it would have hoped not to have had to deal with such a major domestic crisis so early into its time in power. But we've also just in the last few moments had an updated statement from the Prime Minister, and this is what he is describing as far-right thuggery. He also says that demonstrators will feel the full force of the law. Demonstrators, perhaps the wrong word, but people taking part in some of the criminality that we've been seeing. He says, you will regret taking part in this. There is no justification, he says, for taking this action. And he also gets into some of the community cohesion issues that will be a major concern to the UK government as well, saying that Muslim communities have been targeted. He points to what he says there have been Nazi salutes in the streets. So the Prime Minister with some strong words today. There have been some who've been criticising him for not being visible enough during this crisis. When it comes to the timing of these episodes of unrest since the Southport stabbings, as we were hearing in that report earlier, some of that seems to have been linked to misinformation and rumour that was spreading online about the identity of the attacker in those Southport stabbings. But even calling what we've been seeing in recent days protests or demonstrations is now something that's being widely criticised across the political spectrum here in the UK, with many politicians saying that this should simply be described as unrest, disorder and criminality, and thuggery now being the word that the Prime Minister is using.
Oli Bharat reporting from London. Time for us to take a breather. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Ukraine displays long-awaited F-16 fighter jets. Nigeria's president calls for an end to protests around the cost of living crisis there. United Nations delegation starts assessing humanitarian situation in Sudan's Darfur area amid a hunger crisis.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday that Ukraine's Air Force pilots had started flying F-16s for operations over Ukraine, confirming the long-awaited arrival of the US-made fighter jets more than 29 months since Russia's attack. The Ukrainian leader announced the supply of the warplanes, which Kyiv has lobbied for since the first year of the war, as he met Air Force pilots at an airbase flanked by 2 F-16s with 2 more of them flying overhead. The arrival of the jets is a wartime milestone for Ukraine that caps many months of waiting, although it remains unclear how much of an immediate impact they will have in enhancing air defenses and on the battlefield. And Dasha Chernyshyova now joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, has Russia reacted to Zelensky unveiling those F-16s in Ukraine, considering that until now we saw that Ukraine had relied on an aging fleet of Soviet-era warplanes in this war?
Well, Russia's long-standing position on the supplies of Western weapons to Ukraine has always been that they will not change the course of what Moscow describes as a special military operation in Ukraine, and Russia has been well prepared to this development. The conversation about sending F-16s to Ukraine is not new, and now they are apparently there. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has repeatedly said that Russia will be looking at all of those F-16s as legitimate targets of its operation in Ukraine, and it will not distinguish whether those are the carriers of nuclear weapons or not. They will all be regarded as such. They are also seen as the significant escalation of the conflict in Ukraine, with Moscow saying that it will have to demilitarize Ukraine. This is one of the stated goals of its operation. Interesting though, one of the companies from the Russian Euros a couple of months ago has announced that hitting the first F-16 in Ukraine will be awarded with the reward of 15 million Russian rubles. This is about $17,000 for the first F-16 hit in Ukraine. So the analysts here expect that there will be the sort of hunt among the Russian military for those F-16s when they get to the skies in Ukraine.
Interesting, you're telling us that Russia is incentivizing the taking down of F-16s. Could these acquisitions by Ukraine change the military equations on ground?
Well, the expectation in Moscow is that that will not change the course of the operation in Ukraine. Again, Russia has been well prepared to this development, but at the same time, if you look at the statements coming from the Western countries, they have all said that Ukraine will be able to strike the targets inside Russia with those F-16s. And this is certainly what Moscow is trying to prevent from happening. And that's why Moscow insists it is creating the so-called sanitary zone, or the buffer zone, in the Kharkiv region, from where most of the strikes against the Russian border regions such as Belgrade, Kursk or Bryansk have been coming. So for the military part and the military analysts who are looking at these things, they're not expected to make a significant change, even though they could be very problematic for some of the targets inside Russia. But for that, again, Moscow says it does have a prepared response, and it is working to make sure that those weapons are eliminated and Ukraine is demilitarized. So we're basically basically waiting to hear for the Russian Ministry of Defense now to say when they actually hit the first of those F-16s. That's the expectation from Moscow.
Dasha Chernishova reporting from Moscow. As violence flares up across Bangladesh, the government has imposed an indefinite curfew and suspended mobile internet. The unrest has resulted in deaths of at least 55 people and hundreds of injuries. Protests led by an anti-discrimination student movement demand Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation. The government has declared a 3-day public holiday.
As violence flare up across Bangladesh and widespread protests continue, the government has imposed an indefinite curfew on Sunday. Alongside the curfew, mobile internet services have been suspended again. The decision follows a violent day of clashes on Sunday. The violence erupted between protesters, law enforcement agencies and ruling party-backed group across Dhaka, Kumila, Rangpur, Kishorganj, Sirajganj, Pabna, Munshiganj and Mogura.
All the ministers are in the hiding. Wait and see how the people will go and surround the PM house. If Sheikh Hasina doesn't resign voluntarily, we will take our next step.
To ensure public safety amid the unrest, the government has declared a 3-day public holiday from Monday to Wednesday. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina also held an emergency National Committee meeting on security affairs on Sunday. The anti-discrimination student movement, which has been leading quota reforms protest, intensified its efforts on Sunday with a nationwide non-cooperation campaign. With one-point agenda, movement's leaders are calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Rabindra's report for DD India.
And DD India correspondent in Dhaka, Naval Singh Parmar, now joins us live on the latest. Naval Singh, has the curfew eased the situation in Bangladesh or have things gotten worse?
Actually, curfew was imposed on 18th night and gradually it was relaxed over a period of time due to controlled in situation. It was not normal, but it was under control. But yesterday there were a huge gathering at the central Shahid Minar of Dhaka, and that thousands of people gathered there, and the coordinators of the protest movement, which was earlier started as a quota reforms movement, they announced for non-cooperation movement from Sunday, and today there were a higher level of violence across the Dhaka as well as other parts of Bangladesh, including other major cities of Bangladesh, and in that around 55 people lost their lives, including 13 police personnel in Sirajganj. So then after today afternoon, Bangladesh Home Minister declared for curfew from today 6 p.m. For the indefinite time. So there were a relaxed period for the previous curfew announcement, and today there is a fresh announcement for without any relaxation, and it will be for the indefinite time. So there were a improvement in this situation, but now with the announcement of the non-cooperation movement,
Right.
and today another announcement came.
Naval Singh,
Of the
right.
movement, and they announced for the long march to Dhaka. So tomorrow there will be a scary day for the people in Dhaka as well as other part of Bangladesh. So the situation is very tense in the roads and streets of Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh.
Right. Also, what is India doing for the safety of its nationals in Bangladesh?
Yes, actually, from last month, in the middle of July, the situation became abnormal, and during that time, there were a large-scale violence on 18th, 19th, and 20th July. So during that time, many of the students, medical students who are here for MBBS, pursuing their medical graduation, most of them are studying in Dhaka and nearby district and some other major towns of Bangladesh. So from last month, many of them shifted or traveled back to India. students are very less in number nowadays. It's my assumption. I don't have a perfect figure, but the students are less in Bangladesh now. Those who are Indian citizens living in Bangladesh are the professional and the people who are working in the multinational companies or the Bangladeshi companies at management level, and they are most of the living in a safe and secure surroundings, and they are taking precautions time to time. Indian High Commission here in Bangladesh also issued advisory and in contact with the Indian nationals who are living in our consular service, as well as the providing a latest update in remaining in coordination with the security agency in Dhaka. So there is a tension, there is a scary environment, but still there are no news of any injury or any unwanted incidents with the Indian nationals still now in Bangladesh. So they are at a safe locality. Yeah.
Naval Singh reporting from Dhaka. Political instability in Venezuela persists as the opposition, supported by various countries, challenges controversial election results. Protests erupted across Latin America, demanding transparency. Also, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado reappeared, criticizing the government for withholding election records. Venezuelan President Maduro has announced the detention of 2,000 individuals related to the unrest.
Political stability in Venezuela remains elusive as tensions escalate between the government and the opposition. The opposition gaining support from the US, Argentina, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Panama, Uruguay and other European countries continue to challenge the controversial election results. On Saturday, Venezuelans across Latin America took to the streets demanding transparency and justice against the election results.
We know they did not win because they are not showing the minutes. The President of the Electoral Council and the President of the Supreme Court of Justice are Chavistas. They are part of the government.
I have been able to talk to my family, but after the outburst these last 2 days, my family has had to be careful about what they post on their social networks, what they talk about at work and what they say on the streets, so they have to be careful.
In Caracas, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado made a dramatic return to public view, joining thousands of supporters in protest. Machado had been in hiding due to fears for her safety. Her reappearance was met with enthusiasm by protesters who have been calling for a recount and transparency in the election process.
The world knows they intend to forcefully withhold the result. 6 days later, they have not handed over a single record. The period has expired and no pseudo-legal maneuver can cover up the truth. The truth is in our tallies and the fact is in our hearts.
Amid the escalating situation, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has addressed the turmoil, announcing on Saturday that approximately 2,000 individuals have been detained in connection with crimes committed during the protests and pledged maximum punishment.
We have 2,000 prisoners captured. From there, they go to Tocoron and Tokyoto. Maximum punishment, justice. This time there will be no forgiveness. This time there will be Tocoron.
As the situation in Venezuela continues to unfold and citizens remain steadfast in their demands, 7 European Union countries, including Italy, France, Germany and Spain, have jointly called on the Venezuelan authorities to promptly publish the electoral rolls to ensure full transparency. Rabindra Chauhan's report for DD India.
The United Nations delegation has started assessing the humanitarian situation in Sudan's Darfur region. Thousands of Sudanese displaced by the ongoing conflict, many of whom have sought refuge in Jebel Mara, west of Sudan, are facing acute hunger. DD India's Isabel Nakiria reports from Kampala.
The civilian authority in Sudan says it has provided information to the UN on the dire humanitarian crisis in the Darfur region. The UN delegation inspected the shelters in Golo in Sudan's Jebel Mara region and interacted with thousands of displaced people fleeing the conflict in North Darfur. Authorities say the Darfur region is facing severe food shortages because a large part of it is under the control of the Rapid Support Forces. The UN and other aid agencies have called for the safe opening of humanitarian corridors to allow aid to be delivered before the situation worsens to a famine. Isabel Nakiria in Kampala reporting for DD India.
Time for us to take a breather. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Analysis on what's driving the protests in the United Kingdom that have taken a violent turn. India's President Draupadi Murmu embarks on a 6-day, 3-nation tour. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. A recap of the headlines. At least 55 killed in fresh clashes between police and protesters in Bangladesh. Its government imposes curfew. Dozens arrested after demonstrations by far-right groups descend into riots in the United Kingdom's towns and cities. Israel's Iron Dome air defense system intercepts rockets launched by Hezbollah. Israel launches retaliatory strikes in southern Lebanon. Countries urge their nationals to leave Lebanon. In a latest development, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has vowed to do whatever it takes to bring these thugs to justice, quote unquote, as he addressed the nation following ongoing unrest across parts of the country. He said there will be arrests, there will be charges, and there will be convictions, whatever the apparent cause or motivation.
If you target people because of the colour of their skin or their faith, then that is far right, and I'm prepared to say so. But it doesn't matter what apparent motivation there is. This is violence, it is not protest. It doesn't matter what the motivation is. The motivation for the vast majority of people in this country is to see their streets safe. And that's what I'm determined that we will deliver.
So what's driving the protests in the UK? Though Keir Starmer says motivation doesn't matter, that has made these protests really take a violent turn. Dr. Swasti Rao, Associate Fellow with MPIDSA in New Delhi, is joining us. Dr. Rao, such a pleasure to have you. What do you make of the riots between far-right anti-immigration protesters and anti-racism protesters in different parts of the UK?
Well, thank you for having me. Good evening to you. Yes, I mean, I've been following this. It's pretty unnerving. And in my opinion, there are, three ways to actually look at it. One, of course, is that this classic debate of why multiculturalism is failing in these societies. And of course, this is not a UK special problem. This problem is actually, we have seen this happen Europe-wide. That there has been this undermining of, national identities and undermining of, all the law and order, and a romanticization of all the multicultural things over the last decade has actually led to this particular problem. So that's one, that's a larger debate. Why is it so that you see these kind of, riots on the rise, the far-right violence and their popularity on the rise across, European societies? That's one approach. The other is that it is also, a problem which is coming from governance issue, which is that you have had parties and governments in all these countries that have not been able to deliver. Now, for example, if you take the case of the UK, right, if you remember that when Rishi Sunak, Conservatives had a 14-year long run at the governance, and they came up with something called stopping the boats and Rwanda plans, etc. But none of that worked, because if you look at the statistics, you will see that actually the illegal migrants and the general number of migrants actually rose up under the rule of the Tories. Now, as long as the Labour government wasn't in power, they used to have these elaborate plans, and if you actually go and see what these elaborate plans are, you would see that they have a lot of plans for controlling migration. They have they have plans for building, so to say, the local skills, etc., to get back the point-based system to streamline, all this migration. But the point is that at the end of the day, this is something at which the different political parties have not been able to deliver, and therefore you see a situation like this. And at the third level, this is an operational problem where I would see that I generally feel, because I study all the European societies, and I'm of the opinion that in general the police system in these societies has not been given enough resources to actually tackle these kind of eruptions of violence. And this is something that you probably be seeing in France, probably be seeing in the UK. And in fact, if you remember the Prime Minister, the first thing that he said was that he has set up a police action plan. And if you look at what that police action plan is, it basically starts from giving the police the resources actually to crack down. Because end of the day, like he said, is that yes, there is a far-right surge, yes, there is an anti-immigrant surge, but this particular stabbing that happened on the 29th of July, and after which all the problems broke out, this was not really coming from a particular religion here, because of course it became a very anti-Muslim thing. But actually, when we got into the details, it was shown that it was basically a Rwandan guy who was born to Rwandan parents who had migrated to the UK. So he was actually pretty much a national out there. So end of the day, this is something which is also fanned by a lot of people, and now of course we have the names of what those people are. In fact, I'm not sure the viewers know that there are certain parties in the UK that actually don't really contest elections so much, but they are out there conducting all these calls for organization and coming together by social media, etc. So end of the day, this is an operational problem as well, and the solution to this is extremely complex. But I would probably say that start with a simpler solution first. Of course, make the police more more powerful, more resourceful, and get the people who are doing this violence pay for it, because we have seen that this kind of model works very well, especially if you take the case of Uttar Pradesh, for example. All these perpetrators, all these people who do the violence actually are then they are identified and then made to pay for all the damage they have incurred.
Right. So we are talking here about the effect that has been caused by these protests and how that can be tackled. But like you said, there's a surge of far right across Europe. UK is an exception, though. In France too, had it not been for tactical voting, Marine Le Pen's far right party would have won. What strategies might be effective in addressing or mitigating the root causes and the issues driving these protests? You said multiculturalism, or the lack of it now, is one of the reasons. Another is governance, because there are also economic issues that are involved here. There are nationals who feel that the jobs are going out to the immigrants. Then there are concerns around the crime rates rising with immigration happening.
So very quickly, I mean, like I said, this is a fairly complex phenomena, because, you see the roots of it going so deep. But like I said, that mostly if you look at how the European societies have been tackling it, I think the first thing that they genuinely need to do is that they need to come out of this romanticization of all the multicultural, heaven. Because truth be told, the multiculturalism has actually been a failed project. And one of the problems that you see, like Europe-wide, and especially the neoliberal project facing, has actually come from this entire, so to say, patronizing of multiculturalism. In fact, there are countries in Europe, and I recently went to one, countries like Poland, and when you go to Poland and you compare the experience in a country like Poland to a country like France or Belgium or UK, is that in Poland you would actually see Europeans walking the street, whereas there are other countries where perhaps it would be difficult for you to see Europeans, because all you see is immigrants. Now, On the one hand, of course, this is a political problem and they have to put their act together in tackling it. On the other hand, like I said, that they have to also sort of get into plans which are implementable. And I'm underscoring this point here. I'm saying that it has to be implementable. Now, one of the things that, for example, Rishi Sunak got so famous for, that he said the Rwanda plan, right? And I've been on your show earlier criticizing the Rwanda plan, etc. Now, if you carefully look into it, these kind of solutions are actually patchwork. They don't address the root cause. They are only addressing a bit of that effect that you see, and then they say that, okay, we are going to be deporting them, and there's a particular amount of money that we are going to be paying. Now the Labours, they were so successful in one of their election manifestos when they said that if you carefully look how the Rwandan plan is going to get implemented, it is going to be a problem for the exchequer, in the sense that the money that is actually involved is so huge that it is not going to solve the problem, but in fact perpetuate other kinds of problems. And let's not forget that UK is also undergoing a lot of economic troubles right now. So my understanding of this is that, like I said, that they should be starting at the at the most simple solution. So, for example, of course, making the police system much more resourceful. And when I say resourceful, I genuinely mean to say that, because if you actually speak to police, local police, for example, in these countries, you would understand how limited are their, so to say, powers. It is very much, I would say, very unlike what we have in India, where the police have been made resourceful to actually crack down on this kind of, of violence. So
Right.
that is probably where they need to make the first beginning, and then they have to make implementable strategies. This is not about anti-incumbency or calling each other out anymore. This is a serious problem. 35% of London today is non-English, and you see that there's a certain kind of surge. There is a reason why the support for far right has been rising. You cannot take that away. It may be 2 or 3 people who have been calling out for people to come and join these protests, but the fact is that they have a following, and you have to get into the reasons as to why is it there a following. So yes, I do agree that if the Labour Party is able to implement the changes that they have been talking about in the manifesto, like building the skill set that they require for their economies to work within Britain and not really be so dependent on migrants, I think this could be a very, very useful beginning.
Okay. Swasti, towards the end, what do you foresee as the future trajectory of these anti-immigration protests in the UK? Do you see them stemming? Do you see them further flaring up?
Well, yes. So do I see them further flaring up? Of course. And that's the unfortunate part of our discussion today. This is not something which has happened for the first time. And why people like us, Europe watchers, get so frustrated is that this kind of violence is nothing new in Europe or in the UK. There is a problem. I mean, sometimes they cross the English Channel. Sometimes they just come by different boats, and small boats and big boats. The problem is not new. And what really gets people like me by a bit of frustration is that why isn't there, like I said, implementable laws? And in my opinion, the way it is spreading, if you really see the way it's spreading on social media, for example, of course, this is going to spread further, because right now you also have this little factor, which is a very, very important factor of how this disinformation works through social media. We have a platform, for example, Telegram or X, where information is not really controlled. And part of the reason, I mean, I was going through how this entire thing actually took this proportion, this unfortunate proportion, and the role of social media platforms and the disinformation which was disseminated by all these platforms was very major. So I think it is going to spread further. And like I said, that till you don't give the police what they require, you are not going to be tackling this by moral grandstanding or by saying that we believe in blah, blah, blah. I think I have been arguing, for a very long time now, that this particular unrest is like, this entire continent is sitting on a ticking time bomb. And it's high time that they really genuinely do something that can make a difference on the ground. And this is not about who wins or loses the election. We have seen that whether it's the Conservatives or for example, now the Labour, there is very little on the table, okay? Because ideally speaking, the way Labour came, I mean, by now the situation probably should have been under control. So it shows that time is running out. They have to quickly implement it. And it is not about, me versus you anymore out there, because the entire continent is reeling under this kind of a pressure.
Absolutely. So if interventions don't take place soon enough, this is going to flare up, especially with the help of social media, like you've been telling us. Thank you, Swasti Rao, for joining us on DD India. More news now. President of India, Draupadi Murmu, has embarked on a 6-day, 3-nation tour to Fiji, New Zealand and East Timor. President Murmu will visit Fiji between 5th to the 7th of this month, where she is scheduled to meet the President and Prime Minister of Fiji, as well as address the Fijian Parliament in Suva on the 6th of August. She will also be visiting the Siva Subramania Swami Temple the next day. It's a symbol of cultural ties between the two countries. President Murmu will be in New Zealand on the 8th and the 9th of August, wherein she is scheduled to meet the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand. She is also scheduled to address the New Zealand International Education Conference in Wellington. President Murmu will next travel to Dili, the capital of the Southeast Asian country of Timor-Leste, where she will hold a bilateral meeting with her counterpart as well as meet the Prime Minister of Timor-Leste. President Murmu will also be addressing the members of the Indian community in all the 3 countries. President Murmu's visit assumes further significance in light of India's continued emphasis on its Act East policy and its outreach to countries in the Southeast Asian and Pacific regions. Time for another breather on DD India News Hour. Coming up after that, Serbian tennis star Novak Djokovic clinches gold medal, beats Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz in men's singles final. US tropical storm Debbie is expected to intensify into a hurricane.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Time now for all the sports action. India have made it to the semi-finals of Paris Olympics 2024 men's hockey after beating Great Britain via shootout. India are 1 win away from a second successive medal at the Olympics. They will now face either Germany or Argentina in the semi-finals. India, who were reduced to 10-man in the 17th minute of the match, defied odds to take the lead through Harmanpreet Singh, who scored his 7th goal of the tournament. Harmanpreet converted a penalty corner in the 22nd minute before Lee Morton equalized for Great Britain 5 minutes later. This came after India had a man sent off in Amit Rohidas. While the match ended 1-1 after full time, India advanced to the semi-finals after winning the shootout 4-2. India's Lakshya Sen has lost in the semi-finals of men's singles badminton clash against world number 2 Victor Axelsen in straight games 20-22, 14-21. He was leading in the first game 16-20, leading 7-0 in the second game too, but Victor Axelsen showed his skills, grit and determination and came back to beat the Indian in straight games, and he showed why he is reigning champion and world number 2. Lakshya will fight for a bronze medal against Lee Zijia of Malaysia on Monday. The journey of Indian boxer Lavleena Borgohain came to an end at the Paris Olympics on Sunday after facing defeat in the women's 75 kg quarterfinals. Lavleena Borgohain lost to China's Li Qian in the women's 75 kilograms quarterfinal. She displayed her full ring craft, but in the end, the third round was characterized by a slowing down of her legs and a weak punch. The Indian boxing campaign ends at the Paris Olympics with no medals. And our correspondent Narayan Singh is joining us now from Paris. Narayan, India has made it to the hockey semi-finals. They will now face either Germany or Argentina. How are the odds for India?
Definitely, if you take a look at this tournament, the kind of hockey India played, we can say that it is one of the best hockey we have witnessed in the recent past. Only one match they lost in the group stage, that was against Belgium, and Belgium was the most strong and most potent team of this tournament. Now in the other quarterfinal, we saw Belgium was outclassed by Spain, and Spain was the lowest ranked team in the quarterfinal. In that sense, we can say that if India play against either Argentina or Germany, the quarterfinal will be played later. So in that match, in that sense, it's going to be an easy path for the India, because if you take a look, last time India were up against Belgium in the semi-finals of the Tokyo Olympics, where India lost to Belgium, and after that India plays the bronze medal match against Germany. So this time around, we know that Belgium is not there. India is looking better team than Argentina and Belgium if they play semi-final, either of them. So we are hoping that India, the kind of performance they deliver throughout the tournament, will continue this. And today we can say that it was exceptional hockey, considering the fact that India means the 10 players against the 11 players. And at a stage like Olympic, if one player is down, it is a Herculean task for any team in the world to fight against the 11 men. So they showed their composure, calm, and they hold their nerve. This is the important aspect of the game today India witnessed. And this strategy, they changed their strategy after Amit Rohidas was shown red card, and they went into defensive mode, and they went for a park the philosophy bus, and they just we can say that they didn't allow the Britain team to penetrate their defense, and the British team was so attacking. Their waves of attack continuously. They tried 10 penalty corner, and it was just our goalkeeper Srijesh, a wonderful job by him, and he was the hero of the match today and saved India and helped India to reach the semi-final of this Olympic hockey tournament.
Indeed, Narayan, in badminton, India's Lakshya Sen will now take on Malaysia's Lee Zijia on Monday for a shot at the bronze medal. And what else is India in contention on day 10?
If we talk about the badminton match, it was really, we can say that heartbreaking, not only for the Lakshya, but the Indian fans who are hoping that Lakshya will be there in the finals and will become first Indian male shuttler to be there. But we can say that his opponent was one of the best player in the world, and Victor Axelsen's record, we know that he was also he has an upper hand against India, that Lakshya Sen in the head-to-head. But we know that Lakshya Sen, the kind of badminton he's played, he was up against the Victor Axelsen most of the time in the first game. But we can say that it was a big match temperament where Victor Axelsen won. And before the match also, Victor Axelsen said that if one player who can defeat him, that was the Lakshya, and he was also the sparring partner of the Victor Axelsen. Victor Axelsen used to call him in Dubai to partner with him for the practice. So he also knows that the kind of player Lakshya was there. So we can say that is a missed opportunity for Lakshya, because who knows that this opportunity will come again or not. He was in the prime form of his life. He was looking perfectly fit. But all in all, we can say the good for the Indian badminton also. And as the tournament will progress, as the Olympic game is progress, we are hoping that our athletes like Neeraj Chopra will do miracle, and in track and field too, other athletes like Kishore Jaina are there. So medal hopes are from there, and we can do better and better as the Olympic games will progress here.
We leave it at that. Narayan Singh reporting from Paris. On to more news. As extreme weather events continue to impact communities across the globe, from flooding in parts of India to storms in the United States, the urgent need for preparedness and resilience becomes increasingly clear. Authorities and rescue teams are working tirelessly to provide aid and support to those affected.
Extreme weather is impacting regions across the globe. In India, heavy rains are causing major disruptions. In Jammu and Kashmir, a cloudburst in Gandarbal has led to severe flooding, damaging streets and vehicles and blocking a hydropower canal The Leh-Srinagar highway is closed and repair efforts are underway. In Uttarakhand, rescue operations are ongoing, including the construction of a footbridge between Sonprayag and Gaurikund. The Indian Army and Air Force are assisting with road repairs, evacuations and supply drops. Himachal Pradesh is also severely affected, with 55 people reported missing and estimated damages of 700 crore rupees. Rescue teams are actively helping those in need. In South India, Wayanad in Kerala is grappling with severe flooding, resulting in over 220 confirmed deaths. The Indian Air Force is performing the rescue operations, including airlifting survivors from Suchipara waterfalls. In Maharashtra, heavy rains have prompted a red alert for Pune, Satara and Palghar and an orange alert for Mumbai and nearby areas. Residents in low-lying regions are advised to exercise caution. Globally, China is facing severe flooding and mudslides in Sichuan and Hunan provinces. In the US, tropical storm Debbie is expected to intensify into a hurricane and make landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast on Monday. As extreme weather events continue to impact communities across the globe, from flooding in parts of India to storms in the US, the urgent need for preparedness and resilience becomes increasingly clear. Authorities and rescue teams are working tirelessly to provide aid and support to those affected. Bureau Report, DD India.
That's all in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Manman Bhattacharya. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.